What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to do a brief recap of the coaches that I've revealed in this top 10 head coaches listing in the NBA. At number 10, I had Bill Fitch. At number 9, Lenny Wilkens. Number 8, Chuck Daly. Number 7, John Cundler. Number 6, I had Red Holtzman. Number 5, Jack Ramsey. Number 4, Greg Popovich. Number 3, Pat Riley. At number 2, I have Phil Jackson. I used to have Phil Jackson number 1, but the reason why I've taken Phil down a little bit is because the guy that I have at number 1, I think, even though he won fewer titles, I think that his dynasty was stronger, and he could have won more had he just chose not to step down. There was really no indication at the time that he stepped down that the dynasty was on its last legs, even though they didn't win the next year that he was out. But he was more innovative and more influential and more revolutionary in how he set the teams up as far as modern day things. I'm gonna get into that later on when I reveal the number 1. But I think anybody that has Phil number 1, you're not wrong either, But Phil Jackson, of course, holds the record for most championships won by an NBA head coach. He won 11, 6 with the Chicago Bulls, 5 with the Los Angeles Lakers. The 6 championships were won with 2 different three-peats, 1990 to 1993, and then 1995 to 1998. With the Los Angeles Lakers, it was won with a three-peat, 1999 to 2002, then a two-peat, 2008 to 2010. Phil is the most successful coach in the history of the NBA. He has the highest win percentage of any coach in the history of the league, 70.4%. Now, there have been times recently other coaches had exceeded him. Steve Kerr was one. Nick Nurse was another one, but they have since then fallen off as far as win percentage is concerned. For a coach to win that many games in the period of time that he coached, is remarkable. Look at some of Phil Jackson's accolades before I go forward with this. Phil Jackson coached between 1978 and 2011. A lot of that was in other leagues and the old Continental Basketball Association before he broke through and became an assistant coach in the NBA, and then of course a head coach from 89 onward. He was a player with the New York Knicks from 1967 to 1978, and he played 2 seasons with the New Jersey Nets before he retired. He became a player assistant coach from 1978 onward, and then after he retired in 1980, he was an assistant coach with the Nets. Then he coached overseas, 1982 to 1987 with the Albany Patroons. 1984, he coached the Piratas del Quebradillas. In 1986, Galetos del Isabela. 1987, once again, Piratas del Quebradillas. I'm trying, man. I know it was something overseas. I remember that. I remember when I read that when I think Jerry Krause said this, when Phil Jackson first arrived with the Chicago Bulls organization, and said he was wearing like a goddamn Hawaiian shirt. I remember when Phil first started coaching with the Bulls, I always thought he looked like an ugly version of Tom Selleck and shit, with the mustache and shit. But I think that when he first arrived, he had the Hawaiian shirt, the mustache and beard, and I think they said he had shorts on or some shit. They say like a fucking hippie. But then, of course, from 87 to 89, he was an assistant under Doug Collins, and, of course, head coach with the Bulls for 9 seasons, and then head coach with the Lakers for a combined, 11 seasons, I think. But anyway, as a player, 2-time NBA champion with the New York Knicks. He was on the NBA All-Rookie First Team in 1968. I suspect if there was a Six-Man of the Year award when he played, he probably would have won it at least once. 2-time First Team Division II All-American player in college. 2-time NCAA Player of the Year. 3-time First Team All-NCC. As a head coach, record 11 NBA championships. 4 times he was the NBA All-Star Game coach, 92, 96, 2000, and 2009. NBA Coach of the Year, 1996. Top 10 coaches in NBA history. One of the top 15 coaches in NBA history. CBA Champion, 1984. CBA Coach of the Year, 1985. Trying to think, why wasn't he the All-Star Game head coach in 1997 for the East? The Bulls finished with 69 wins that year. Second place was Miami. I guess the Bulls didn't have the best record at the All-Star break, but that doesn't make sense. I have to look back at that. I've kind of forgotten some things. Maybe New York had a better record, or Miami. I can't remember. But anyway, let's talk about Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was born in Montana back in 1945. And both of his parents were Assemblies of God ministers. Phil Jackson attended high school in Williston, North Dakota, where he played varsity basketball and led the team to a state title. He also played football, was a pitcher for the baseball team, and threw the discus in track and field competition. Jackson attracted the attention of several baseball scouts. Their notes found their way to future NBA coach Bill Fitch, who had previously coached baseball and had been doing some scouting for the Atlanta Braves. Bill Fitch took over as head basketball coach at the University of North Dakota in the spring of 1962 during Jackson's junior year of high school. Bill Fitch successfully recruited Jackson to the University of North Dakota, where he was a member of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity. Jackson did very well there, leading the team to third and fourth place finishes in the NCAA Division II tournament in his sophomore and junior years, 1965 and 66. Both years they were beaten by the Southern Illinois Salukis. Jackson's future Knicks teammate Walt Frazier was the Salukis' biggest star, but the two only faced off in 1965 as Frazier was academically ineligible in 1966. In 1967, Phil Jackson was drafted in the second round by the New York Knicks. While he was a good all-around athlete with unusually long arms, he was limited offensively but compensated with intelligence and hard work on defense. Jackson eventually established himself as a fan favorite and one of the NBA's leading substitutes, although he had very little playing time. He was a top reserve on the Knicks team that won the championship in 1973. Jackson did not play during New York's 1969-70 championship due to spinal fusion surgery. However, he authored a book entitled Take It All, a photo diary of the 1970 championship run by the Knicks. Soon after the 1973 title, several key starters retired, creating an opening for Jackson in the starting lineup. In the 74-75 season, Jackson and the Milwaukee Bucks' Bob Dandridge shared the lead for total personal fouls with 330 each. Jackson lived in Leonia, New Jersey during this particular time. After crossing the Hudson in 1978 to play 2 more seasons for the Nets, he retired as a player after the 1979-80 NBA season. At this particular time, Phil Jackson was about 35 years old. 34. Hadn't turned 35. He was 34 years old. In the years immediately following the end of his playing career, Jackson coached in professional leagues like the CBA and Puerto Rico's National Superior Basketball. While in the CBA, he won his first coaching championship, leading the Albany Patroons to their first title in 1984. Jackson was named the CBA Coach of the Year in 1985. In Puerto Rico, he coached the Piratas de Quebradoras, whatever. Let me say this. Let me get this down. Piratas de Quebradilas. Piratas de Quebradilas. 1984-1997, and the Galatos del Isabela, 1984 through 1986. He regularly sought NBA jobs but was turned down. Jackson had acquired a reputation for being sympathetic to the counterculture during his playing years, which may have scared off potential NBA employers. Kind of interesting how Phil Jackson was very sympathetic to the counterculture, but in today's world, he seems very anti-youth. No politics in basketball. Anyway, in 1987, Jackson was hired as an assistant coach by the Chicago Bulls under Doug Collins, wearing Hawaiian shirts, like I said, looking like a hippie. Damn hippie. He was promoted to head coach in 1989. It was around this time that he met Tex Winter and became a devotee of Winter's triangle offense. Now, before I go forward, one of the misconceptions that people had about Phil Jackson in the 1990s is that Phil Jackson was the innovator of the triangle offense. It was Tex Winter. Phil Jackson preached it, popularized it, but Tex Winter behind the scenes was the architect of the triangle offense. Over 9 seasons, Jackson coached the Bulls to 6 championships, winning 3 straight championships over separate 3-year periods. The three-peat was the first since the Boston Celtics won 8 titles in a row from 1959 through 1966. Jackson and the Bulls made the playoffs every year and failed to win the title only 3 times. Michael's first retirement after the 1992-93 season marked the end of the first three-peat, and although Jordan returned just before the 1995 playoffs, it was not enough to prevent a playoff elimination by the Orlando Magic. Despite the Bulls' success, tension between Phil Jackson and Bulls general manager Jerry Krause grew. Some believe that Krause felt under-recognized for building a championship team. You know what? I ain't got to read this. I know this. I live this. I breathe this. We talk too raw. I don't have to read this. Look, this is the thing. Phil Jackson was very popular with the media. Jerry Krause was not. And at the end of the day, Jerry Krause's insecurities grew. He felt like he wasn't getting enough credit. Jerry Krause was a very, very egotistical person. Phil Jackson was very egotistical. Not that Phil Jackson was the most photogenic guy, but Jerry Krause looked a little bit like the ugly brother of Gargamel. So the media didn't really... Plus he was fat, sloppy, oafish looking, frequently had donut crumbs on the lapels of his jacket. So at the end of the day, he was a legend in his own mind. Very intelligent, very insightful, made good decisions as far as rosters are concerned, but he wasn't as great as he thought he was. He began to resent Phil Jackson a lot. And as the Bulls won more and more championships, Jerry Krause's resentment grew more and more and more, to the point where it crossed over and spilled. He could deal with the shit with Michael Jordan, even though he thought Jordan got too much credit. But Michael was sort of untouchable in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? You're not going to win that PR war. Not back then. But with Phil, he was the one that hired Phil. So it was more personal with Phil. To the point where that last year with Chicago, Jerry Krause infamously told Phil Jackson, look, I don't give a fuck if you guys go 82-0. After this year, you're gone. You're gone. Now, Jerry Reinsdorf, who owned the Bulls and still owns them, even though I think his son kind of increasingly has day-to-day control over the team now. But I think he sat down with Phil and he tried to sort of intervene, like maybe go over across his head. But I think Phil himself had enough. He probably didn't want to work somewhere where, he was working with a guy that had it in for him that much. But anyway, ultimately, that was Phil Jackson's last year, but that was a domino effect. The domino effect was, well, if this was Phil's last year, guess what? Michael Jordan's going to retire, which pissed all of us off because we didn't want it to end, because I felt like the Bulls had another championship in them after that year. Well, guess what? At the same time, shit's going on with Scottie Pippen in management. Scottie Pippen feels slighted. He's not getting paid a lot, even though it was Scottie's fault for signing that stupid-ass contract, but Scottie wanted more money. Right? So Scottie was gone. And if those guys are gone, well, Rodman's going to leave. So at the end of the day, while it was a beautiful last ride, Bulls fans really had it in for Jerry Krause. Then after Phil and all those guys are gone, he hires a guy named, I think it's Tim Floyd out of Iowa State. Talking about he's going to be the next great coach. The motherfucker lasts maybe like 1 or 2 seasons, I can recall. And then after that, it was just a carousel of bad, mediocre coaches. And we still haven't forgiven Jerry Krause since. Even though Jerry Krause has been dead for like 5 or 6 years, we still haven't forgiven Jerry Krause. So that's that. After the Bulls' final title of the Jordan era in 1998, Jackson left the team vowing never to coach again. However, after taking a year off, he decided to give it another chance with the Los Angeles Lakers in 1999. Jackson took over a talented Lakers team and immediately produced results as he had done in Chicago. In his first year in LA, the Lakers went 67-15 during the regular season to top the league. Reaching the conference finals, they eliminated the Portland Trailblazers in a tough 7-game series and then won the 2000 NBA championship by beating the Pacers. With a talented superstar duo of Shaq and Kobe, a strong supporting cast of Glenn Rice, Derek Fisher, Rick Fox, Devin George, A.C. Green, Robert Horry, and Brian Shaw, and the assistance of former Bulls Horace Grant, Ron Harper, and John Salley, Jackson led the Lakers to 2 additional titles in 2001 and 2002 against the Sixers and the Nets, adding up to his 3rd three-peat as a coach. The only real serious challenge that the team had in the Western Conference at that time were the Sacramento Kings, and I guess you could say the Spurs eventually too as well. Once again, with a Phil Jackson team, there's never any lighthearted moments or easy moments. Of course, the main thing we know is that there was growing tension between Kobe and Shaq. Kobe resented being in Shaq's shadow. Shaq felt like he was a general. You do as he say, blah, 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 blah. But one thing I noticed about the Lakers was after 2000, they increasingly played more outside in. Shaq's field goal attempts went down. Kobe's went up. But at the same time, Kobe's productivity went up. Shaq's injuries went up, which isn't a good thing. And, it was some tension. They still won 3 championships in a row. They could have won more. But, hey, it is what it is. And by 2003, the Lakers were eliminated in the second round by the eventual champion San Antonio Spurs. The very next year, they acquire, Karl Malone and Gary Payton. They make it to the NBA Finals, but they were knocked off by the upstart Detroit Pistons. This was the first time in 10 attempts as a head coach that Phil Jackson, had lost in the NBA Finals, going back to his tenure, of course, as head coach with the Chicago Bulls. On June 18, 2004, 3 days after the loss to the Pistons, the Lakers announced that Jackson would leave his position as head coach. Jackson was seeking to double his salary from $6 to $12 million on his expiring contract. He had a contract offer outstanding from the Lakers, but he had not acted on it. Tex Winter said Jackson announced at the All-Star break that he would not want to return to the Lakers if Kobe returned. Many fans attributed Jackson's departure directly to the wishes of Bryant, as Lakers owner Dr. Jerry Buss reportedly sided with Bryant. Jackson, Bryant, and Buss all denied that Bryant had made any explicit demand regarding Jackson. However, Shaq, upon hearing General Manager Mitch Kupchak's announcement of the team's willingness to trade O'Neal and its intention to keep Bryant, indicated that he felt the franchise was indeed pandering to Bryant's wishes with the departure of Jackson. O'Neal's trade to the Miami Heat was the end of the trifecta that had led the Lakers to 3 championship titles. That fall, Phil Jackson released The Last Season, a book which describes his point of view of the tensions that surrounded the 2003-2004 Lakers team. The book was pointedly critical of Kobe Bryant. Without Jackson and O'Neal, the Lakers were forced to become a faster-paced team on the court. Though they achieved some success in the first half of the season, injuries to several players, including Kobe Bryant and Lamar Odom, forced the team out of contention, going 34-48 in 2005 and missing the playoffs for the first time in 11 years. Rudy Tomjanovich, Jackson's successor as coach, resigned midway through the season after coaching just 41 games, citing health issues not related to his past bout with bladder cancer, which immediately led to speculation that the Lakers might bring Jackson back. On June 15th, 2005, my 25th birthday, preceding the 2005-2006 season, the Lakers rehired Jackson, and Jackson subsequently led the Lakers to a 7th seed playoff berth for the 2006 playoffs. Well, let's just skip through a lot of this. 2007, of course, the 2007-2008 season, pressure for the Lakers and Kobe to win was mounting. Prior to that season, I believe there was a radio interview that Kobe gave where he was threatening to try to force a trade, that he would be willing to be traded if the Lakers were not indeed serious about winning championships, because by that point it had been over 3 years since the Lakers had even been to the finals, and that had been 5 years since they won their last championship. Midway through the 2007-2008 season, the Lakers acquired Pau Gasol from the Memphis Grizzlies, and that gave Kobe Bryant a much-needed relief pivot player who could score and rebound, and plus Pau Gasol was a rather skilled player. In that particular season, they made it all the way to the NBA Finals, although they did lose to the Boston Celtics in 6 games. In 2009, the Lakers went back to the NBA playoffs and back to the NBA Finals, where they would beat the Orlando Magic in 5 games for Phil Jackson's 10th NBA championship. And then in 2010, the Lakers went back to the finals for a 3rd year in a row, in which they defeated the Boston Celtics in an epic 7-game series. Phil Jackson won his 11th championship, his 10th and 11th championships, eclipsing Red Auerbach for most championships by a head coach in the history of the NBA. So after the 2010-2011 season, Phil Jackson retired as a head coach. I believe the last series that he coached was the Dallas Mavericks series, in which they were swept by Dallas. I think that was the 2nd round of the playoffs in 2011. And in that final news conference that season, he noted that he did not have much of a relationship with Jerry or Jim Buss, and said, "When I leave here, I don't anticipate Lakers management will call me up and ask for my advice." And as far as Phil Jackson's coaching career is concerned, he won 1,155 games. only had 485 losses for a 70.4% win percentage. In the playoffs, he won 229 games, lost only 104 for a 68.8% win percentage in the playoffs. As a matter of fact, Phil Jackson had teams that won at least 60 games. Let's see, he coached 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He coached individually as a head coach for 20 different seasons. Of those 20 seasons, his teams won 60 games or more 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different times. That's a lot. 6 different times. And they won 50 games 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different times. So the most successful head coach of all time, in my opinion, the second greatest head coach of all time, Phil Jackson. I know some people aren't going to agree with this, but tell me what you guys think.